Hey, thanks to our sponsors at Overdogs.bet, the only place on the planet with exotic MMA prop bets. Sign up now for beta and free play. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, because the King of Violence told you to do so. Show some love to the Overdogs podcast, baby.
Mike Perry's not just going to beat you. Mike Perry's going to hurt you, and that's a very different proposition. Dave Feldman has never come out and told the world the truth, which is how many freaking cowards he spoke to on the phone. He cannot offer enough money. He cannot spot you enough pounds. Mike's having to fight guys that fight 2 and 3 weight classes higher just to get in there. Getting busted up versus embarrassed is, I'm just sharing with you, it's a very different thing. Not to mention by a smaller guy. Not to mention nobody knows who his trainer is or where his coach is. He's got a girl in his corner. Like, there's a lot of reasons you don't want to get beat up by Mike Perry. Right? It's Mike Perry and Conor McGregor. There are only 2 guys where it doesn't matter who the opponent is. Like, whatever Mike Perry does, and Dave Feldman has gone out of his way. Dave's coming up with the money. He's bringing in the names. He's doing the press conferences. Whatever Conor does, it could be bare knuckle. He could go box Manny or he could do MMA. He's going to draw. The other star is Mike Perry. That's the only 2 stars that we have that can do it on their own.
We're here. What's up, Ice Bags? How you doing, brother?
All good, brother. How are you, Mikey?
Oh, man. Feeling good. You know, we got a good lineup, good show today. I'm interested to find out some things about how our guest today has, accomplished so much success. Did he go to speech class? Because, man, he can talk, man.
He can. As good as anybody on TV, in the fight game, you name it.
He could sell it.
You coming home from church or what? Why you dressed up so nice?
Oh, this is my Chael Sonnen outfit, man. I felt like I should be pristine and professional today. I didn't have a tie. I'd have put on a tie for the American Gangster.
I hear you. When was the last time you had to wear a tie?
It's been a while.
I don't think I put one on in a couple of years, to be honest.
I mean, the suits look good with the, you get the mix match, the colors, the creams, this and that, and you don't need a tie. So
it's true. Yeah, even it's gone a lot more informal. You can wear some kicks with it now. So yeah, I agree. Did you guys have a good time? Did you guys have a good time in Miami?
Yeah, man. Besides the flat tire thing and everything worked out.
You want to tell that story?
The beach was cool. What's that?
Said tell that story.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened. My car was parked out front valet at the hotel. My dad even saw it. My dad saw the rim, and he's like, that looked like a rifle shot. Like somebody shot your rim. I'm like, that's impossible, though. They're like, there's no way. And I didn't hear a bang. He was like, they would have had to been far away. I don't know what the hell burst out of my rim, but something burst out. And so I'm riding down the highway. That thing was driving pretty good. I don't know how it went down quick, the numbers. And then I did fix a flat and I put some air. Nothing happened. I had to drive on my rim for a little bit to find some Puerto Rican shop. They was out there working at the gas station. And I was like, yo, he was going to give me a tire. I think he was like just trying to get my tire and like give me another one. And he was like, it's no. And then we saw the hole in the middle of the rim. And we're like, what the hell? So then I had to put my spare on. And then with the G-Wagon, like they got that spare on the back. And then your regular rim doesn't fit back on there. So like, you got to put it in the trunk.
Yeah, that's weird.
How they going to make it like that? Like, why won't you make it where my regular rim can go on where the spare goes?
No, 100%. But it was funny, man, because we were like, we obviously went down for business meetings. And so we were all sitting in there, I don't know, 11 o'clock in the morning, whatever. Wait, and I'm like, Mike should be here any minute. And then Mike's like, dog, I think I got shot at. Like, shows a picture. And I shit you not, we'll pull it up. On the show. But dude, it looks just like a fucking bullet hole, and there's nothing sticking in it. You know what I mean? It's not like you ran over something and it just stuck in it. Like, I don't see any other explanation, to be honest.
My pop said if a bullet went through the tire, but that don't make no sense. He don't know what the hell he talking about. But he was like, if it went through the tire, then it just closed back up. I'm like, no, it didn't. The tire would have been ripped open. It didn't rip. It didn't close back up. I thought maybe I was driving like an asshole, which I don't think I was, and somebody just in their little Nissan Altima with the windows down because they got no AC, they just was like pissed off and just shot my. But the bullet or whatever it was came out of the rim. Otherwise, the hole would have been inward. I don't know. It's not a super entertaining story, to be honest with you. A whole lot of nothing.
All right, so I want to talk about this a little bit because I was talking about it earlier today with my boys. Like, what do you think about it? Started off with Ilia Topuria, because Topuria just came out and he's like, I'm the best looking, I'm the best dressed, I'm the best boxer, I'm the best all-around fighter in the UFC. And we were kind of like, all right, slow your roll a little bit, Ilia. Like, you're good, dog, and I love you, but man, you've only had, you know, you haven't even defended the title yet, right? And so then that conversation led into, you know, do we need to get these champions more active? It just feels like some of these guys are really inactive, and then we end up, you know, dragging this shit out. And I'll use John Jones as an example, and I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, do you think that John should still have the title now that he's, you know, he took 3 years off, won, now he's taking another year off, you know, for recovery? And it does. Like, if I'm Aspinall, you know, and I'm one of those younger guys, the contenders, like, I'm mad about it, right? So what are your thoughts on that? Should they have to be active a certain period of time before they vacate, you know? And then maybe, look, if you get hurt, I get it, right? But maybe you get an automatic title shot back once you come back and you're healthy. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
There's a lot of politics in this question because it's hard with John. That he comes into the heavyweight, he dominates a fighter who people, you know, Serial Gone is like, you know, he's given these other high-level heavyweights problems, and John just won quickly. And then, you know, then it's unfortunate that there's an injury, and then, you know, John says some things that are true. It's like whoever's on a hiatus, they boost these guys so much, but then you got to look at statistic facts. John posted something about title fights, title defenses, heavyweight and light heavyweight where he was, and you know, then you think about guys like Aspinall and or anyone else, and there is no title defenses. There isn't anything. And then you got Stipe Miocic. He's got 6.
Yeah.
So then you're talking a high caliber title matchup, and it just, you know, what everyone sees from the outside looking in is like Stipe's not ready for John. He's not ready for that boost in competition, which isn't fair to say because Stipe was, you know, the best heavyweight at one time of all time. And, you know, and it's like whoever just knocks someone out, they're like, oh, that's the guy.
It's the next thing,
and
right?
John's like, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I've been doing this shit.
Yeah.
He's been doing this shit. You guys were on his nuts a while back, on mine a while back. And all of a sudden there's a new guy comes in, you know, I get, you know, but, and then the UFC does, sometimes they take a totally different route and you're going to get on board with it anyways.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you brought up Ilia, I saw something today from MMA Fighting that said, you know, Islam Makhachev's not really on his radar. And if he does a little bit of this, if he does a little of that, then maybe he'll be on his radar, but like right now he's not. I'm like, oh, okay.
But he does this over and over, right? And it's like, you got, at one aspect, you got to love the confidence, right? Because to carry that swagger, like you have to have that swagger if you're going to be the champ, right? And you're going to stay there for a while. You got to have that swagger. But and then it takes it. Then he just tends to take it too far, right? Like says that about Islam. When Max, essentially told Max he needed to retire, prior to the Gaethje fight, like tweeted that shit out, and it's like, bro, you're 26 years old, you're in such a good spot, like just chill a little bit.
But it's good to be vocal.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid. And he knows also he's the champ at 145. He can technically talk shit about anybody that's not even going to be or have an opportunity to fight him. He can use their name to just be like, I don't think he's that good. I think I'm better here, here, and here. And then it boosts himself. It boosts his fans, his listeners, his followers, whatever.
Right.
It's hard. I try to be honest about everything, but then again, I got Dylan Dennis in my damn DMs trying to compare his career at all to mine. What? And I'm like, dude, he said something like it's the same because he faced people that were the best in their respective sport. Talking about jiu-jitsu, in my opinion. And I'm like, it's not the same. When I can punch my opponents in the face, it makes a difference. And he's like, he tries to compare any of my past opponents or the career that I had in the UFC. I'm like, I was fighting at a professional level, like the highest professionals, some of the best fighters in the world, and I've done that so many times over and over again. Yeah, I had some lessons in there, but his lessons haven't even been in front of crowds on cameras. He had 2 jiu-jitsu fights against the damn Bellator fighters who no one knew. Yeah. And then he got beat up by a YouTuber who finally won a boxing match against him. So, like, I don't get how you can compare at all.
I agree. Like, it's one thing to compare it if you guys are going to be in a jiu-jitsu match, right? Okay, then I get it, right? You're fucking good at jiu-jitsu. But now we're adding in kicks and punches and shit that I'm fucking good at. Like, you can't compare the two. You just compare them one aspect of 5 or 6, right? So I do want to jump back to that John conversation a little bit, though, because you hit on a point that John actually told me, right? Because you said, it's always the next guy, right? Like if John's out and some guy comes up with a monster knockout, we'll just use Aspinall because he's that guy right now, right? Then everybody's like, he's the next guy. But it was the exact same thing with Gann, right? When John took a week off. Dude, John came in, Gann was like a minus 250 favorite when that fight was released, right? Like a 2.5 to 1 favorite to beat John. Now, the odds changed towards the fight time and people started betting John, saying like there's too much value here. But then Gann got choked out in 30 seconds. And so when John and I were talking about this, he's like, Josh, you don't get it. I've been dealing with this my whole career, right? Like the next guy up is always the next coming of John Jones. You know what I mean? He's like, but every fucking time I prove that they're not, and I've been doing this for, over a decade. Like this is just the basic shit I deal with and listen to prior to every fight. Right? Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Shout out to the GOAT, man.
For sure. All right, so yeah, I'm excited about this one, man. We've been trying to get this guy on for a while. The legendary Chael Sonnen. How many years? I don't know how many years the UFC makes them wait out before they do an induction. Because I mean, clearly he's going to be a UFC Hall of Famer if he's not already been inducted. I mean, either way, whether he's been inducted or not, clearly a Hall of Famer. Great career. Fought some of the best guys. Fought the GOAT that we were just talking about, and has rolled it into a really good gig, post career. And I know he thinks very highly of you.
Super grateful.
Very. You remember the video you showed me when we were in San Francisco when I was watching that, and he compared you to Matt Damon and Good Will Hunting. He went on about you for like 15 minutes there, man. It was good stuff. So clearly a level of respect between the two of you.
Yeah, I loved that one.
When Dylan, went and fought, Logan, he caused a massive stir, right? And look, he does it. I think he does a lot of it for reaction. You know what I mean? And for views and things like that, more so than really just trying to be a fucking dickhead. I think he does it because he knows he's going to get a result out of it. And obviously his boxing, was not good. He is a world-renowned jiu-jitsu guy. We know that. But how far do you think he's going to try to take it with you to get under your skin? Do you think it goes anywhere near to the levels that it did with Logan? Or do you think do you guys have a little more respect between each other to it not to go to that level?
Dylan will talk shit. I don't, there's not juice out there. I mean, he already tried to bring up something like from the past. Those things I have gotten through won't mean anything to me. I mean, it's fine. I got through them. I made myself better on the other end, and I've been winning for the past few years consistently. So I think, that's what I'll focus on. And if he wants to say anything, he won't try to make it up. And there's not beef, there's not juice out there for my significant other. So he could try. The worst he's done was the video of me putting the panties in my mouth. Like he said gonorrhea. I'm like,
Yo,
that
was
like
a wild
dessert,
ass video,
man.
for real.
It sounds like dessert, man. My wife is hot, bro. I like my wife, so sometimes
Eating
I don't
her
like
panties on eating her panties on Instagram was a stretch, though. Somebody sent it to me. And I was like, "What the fuck am I watching right now?"
Trying to let people know what they could see if I had an OnlyFans,
Yeah.
See me eat them panties right off her.
Yeah. Yeah. How much you guys want to see of this? Can we monetize it?
I do it for free. It's not really for free. Shit, I pay for it.
Right.
You got to pay for that puss.
Yeah, we had that.
Make sure you
conversation
get you a
this
good
weekend, too.
one. I was giving that young man we was with Malky. I was giving that young man a pep talk about not letting the women ruin his future sports career. Like, make sure you just find one that you like, man. As long as you like her, you'll be fine.
Hey, look, they're all going to cost you a lot of money. It don't matter if it's a stripper, a mistress, a wife for life. They all going to cost a bunch of money. So find ones you like.
That's the way, man. Yeah, Chael hit me back up, man. Do you do that thing that Andrew Tate does, Josh?
What's that?
Do you hold your hands like this when you're speaking? It's like you do. It's like people say that there's positions that you hold your hands so that when you talk, it's more directive towards the 1%ers and it. I don't know. It means more.
I mean, yeah, I'm
manifesting.
You see it all the time. Yeah, you see it all the time. They're like, oh, Jay-Z's throwing up, devil signs, or they try to get it on fucking everything, right? But
complete the circuit of your body, make the electrons flow, and I do it because it increases my powers. It's like a power up.
I got proof. I just got proof from Europe, and I'm here. I'm doing my part. I'm here.
You having trouble?
I don't know.
I'm doing my thing. I clicked on the little button. All right, we're gonna refresh it. Sometimes something magical happens when you refresh it.
Oh, there he is. What's up, Chael? I was just checking your message. What's up, brother? The bad guy.
What is happening?
The American gangsters in the
real?
house, everybody.
Bags, is that real? Do you really have a wine, or did you just put like a Coke in a wine glass?
Oh, no. I would never fake that, brother.
That's a Cabernet, brother.
That's a gangster move. Mike, you look great. What the hell? Mike Perry's the most professional dressed one of all of us? I can't believe this. Look at this guy. You look wonderful.
Thank you, sir. I did it for you, man. I thought I would dress like just a broadcaster, because that's what you are, man. You're broadcasting for everyone wherever you go.
Mac, I've always appreciated you on social media, by the way. Thank you, buddy.
Mac's having technical difficulties today.
All right.
Mac is
You'll tell
checked
him later.
out.
You let him know I paid him a compliment. Hey, Mike, did it surprise you that Luke Rockhold beat Joe Schilling, by the way? I was really surprised. First off, I was surprised Luke took the fight. I mean, I thought after what he went through in your guys' match, all right, I've had enough of this striking. I'm not doing this anymore. He jumped right back on the horse, which he should get credit for. I mean, Luke gets teased a lot. He drives people the wrong way because he's a handsome guy or something. He should get credit for that, for getting back into a fisticuffs after you took his teeth and his jaw, and then he won. That's a really good win. But I'm wondering if you think so. Maybe you're not impressed with Joe Schilling.
I tell you what. I'm not impressed with Joe Schilling. I think he's quite chinny, but I was happy and impressed with Luke Rockhold, his kicking abilities. I did not have to deal with his kicking abilities. If I was trying to box Luke and he was kicking my arms, I'd obviously have to find another way to punch on him. But, you know, timing the fakes in and out, trying to watch out for those kicks to my body. And then he landed a good check hook. I mean, the same check hook he tried to hit me with from a southpaw position, lead right hand.
Yep.
And he tried to hit me with that, but I rolled it and then came back with my own. I think Joe Schilling hasn't fought in a long time, and he's more chinny.
Luke,
So
to your point, Luke is awesome with kicks, and not everyone knows that. And he's great on the ground. Like, it's another one where he doesn't quite get recognized, but if he went into like an Abu Dhabi, the tryouts or something like this, he would do better than most MMA guys.
He's also so long.
I like the Lyoto Machida rematch over there for him.
Are they doing
I
it?
think Lyoto likes it as well.
Lyoto's going to go do karate.
Well, that's who Luke called out.
All right.
Luke said that's who he wants to get in the pit with.
Wow.
He wants to give him a striking battle because, you know, he beat him all those years ago, but he dragged him to the floor. Lyoto's quite the striker.
That's a hard call out. He's just got a weird style. You can't really mimic him in the gym. There's no one that does Machida but Machida.
This is true. I'm fortunate to get to train with him all the time. And look, we can put a little boost on this. I think I might be jumping back in an MMA fight. And the other day I actually did an MMA round with Lyoto, who I don't know if he's anywhere between 215 and 230. I'm 190. And I was grappling with him quite well, and he's a very high-level black belt. I know he's strangled me in the past. I watched out for that. So I'm looking to jump in a fight against somewhat of a jiu-jitsu guy and get an MMA win.
Now that you say that, I read that. And where was that? Was gonna like a Netflix or something? I read something about this.
No, people are thinking online that it's gonna be bare knuckle, but you know, bare knuckle boxing, they're not jumping in line to come in there and fight me. So it's I'm waiting to sign it, but it's Misfits.
Yep.
And I'm hoping to sign it before this episode even comes out. Yep. So Misfits, MMA, they're putting on a show, I'm going to be punching on Dylan Dennis.
I knew it. Is that a secret? I knew that, and I kept it a secret. Is that a secret? I knew the whole time you were right here.
Well, it was.
I knew the whole time.
But there's no secrets with Dylan Dennis because he's staying in my ear in the DMs. He's getting on my damn nerves, and I'm ready to punch on his ass. So I don't know if he's going to back out and he's just playing like he's going to fight me. I love the setup, man. I gotta clean up my setup here. I be chilling on the couch though.
I like it. I just feel like you couldn't do this. Like if you do this, we'll all see. I feel like you couldn't really put your legs up and I feel like you're locked into this position. Am I right? Do you sit here the whole time like this?
Well, sometimes I get up here.
Mike, I got rear-ended by a fully loaded gravel truck, a great big dump truck, fully loaded with gravel, and it had a trailer, fully loaded with gravel. Like you could see the rocks coming out. I was the first one hit. I went into a guy who went into a guy who went into a guy. One dude had to get separated but with the jaws of life. He was in a Ford Prius. I jumped out of my car and fucking ran over to the guy, and he was trapped in there, but he ended up being okay. But I was the first one hit. That's my point. I took the blunt of the shot. I was able to drive away, but one thing happened to me, which is all these years, like only one thing, which I can't sit the way you're sitting. I can only sit like the way for about 20 seconds. I have to put a foot up. And I've even been on airplanes before, and I had the flight attendant come and tell me. It's like, lady, I'm a 40-year-old man. You can't, maybe this is rude, but you can't come tell me to put my feet down. That hasn't happened to me since I was not, what are you doing? Yeah. Anyway.
But I'm the same way, Chael. I'm the same way.
I've
always got one leg over the other. I feel like it helps on the back.
I fully agree. You switch them
when I cut weight.
Very nice.
That reminds me, when I cut weight, this happened for the worst time. The first time was in Uruguay before I fought Vicente Luque. And my sciatica started acting up because I'm cutting weight. I'm cutting 170 pounds. I'm dehydrating, and Rodolfo Vieira, a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a world-class practitioner, he taught me this stretch where I put one foot over and then I bring this knee up to my chest and then I let this relax, and then that butt cheek just gets so much blood flow going, and you do it for like a couple minutes each side. He saved my life with that stretch, man. I'm always trying to sell that stretch to every old guy who has a back problem. I'm like, yo, it's the sciatica. This is what you got to do. It changed my life.
I love everything about that. You just taught me something.
Yeah.
I was super receptive, and then you slipped in old man. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to need that then.
I'm an old man. Shit, I'm an old man these days.
Older, Mike. We're getting older. We're not old. There's a big difference.
You guys look great, man.
Hey, I'm not shitting you. I feel better at 42 than I did at 32.
I'm surprised you are 42. If I was to guess, I would have thought you were closer to 32 than 42. You look great.
I thought you were going to say 52, but all right,
Nope.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
No.
What a guy. Hey, Chael, man, we got a nice little list of things that happened in your career, and there were some interesting questions on here as to like what happened in your career.
Mike,
Oh my God.
before we got to that, when we were off air, you actually said something that was very interesting to me, which was your training with Lyoto Machida. Where is that? Where is? I didn't know Lyoto was still at it. I know at one point he was in California. Have you moved out there? Do I have the geography right? Are you in California now?
No, sir.
He just left stuff out Florida, I think.
Yes, we are Central Florida, and there is a mixed martial arts gym. I train mostly at a boxing gym called Technique, and then there's an MMA gym. A lot of good Central Florida MMA guys all end up over there at Fusion XL inside the West Oaks Mall in Ocoee, Florida, and I love to go over there. I do my boxing training, and then I go and I get a different look from those guys who do MMA all day. They're great grapplers, high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners over there. A great group of guys, and they all give me different types of striking looks. And mostly they just, when I have fights coming up, people will just do boxing with me. And, if I have a fight coming up, I just don't do all the other things. It's just not in the good practice for me to get my body to do the right things in the boxing ring. So, but because I had the fight and then I got back to training and I might do an MMA fight, I went in the gym. I made sure Lyoto was my first 5-minute round because, we did some warm-ups and stuff. And I was like, I'm going to get tired dealing with this guy. He's 220 pounds at least. And, and he's a black belt. So I did get tired, but my recovery was there because I'm still in shape from the fight. Got up, and then I went with another black belt for 5 minutes, and then I went with my boy Philly Fresh and me, had a pretty violent round, who he is about to fight as well in the UFC against Jake Matthews. Yeah. That is coming up.
All right.
So,
hey, I love that, and I get why you would grab Machida on your first day back, like as a measuring stick, and kind of see where you're at. I actually know about the Technique Gym in Florida. They got kids that go there that are like aspiring Olympians. So let me ask you this. How do they treat you? How are you perceived? Are you that tough guy that's the face of an organization? Or are you that dirty, rotten guy that didn't pay his dues? Like, how do they look at you there?
That's interesting. Sometimes they look at me and they want, at both of these gyms it happens, and the kids are amazing. They're so full of life. They're so hardworking, especially Coach JT. Coach JT is amazing. The role model that you would want around your kid. Not soft at all, but he's not, he's down to not play music without the curse words. We want a good environment. He has a family type environment where he'll have group meetings with all the kids. I'm there, I'm working out with these kids, and they're the ones that have gotten me to, I got to keep up with these kids. They don't get tired ever. I'm exhausted and sweating, and now I don't ever tell them, hey, look, I put a little more into my punch than you do, or a little more into my workout than you might be. You're pacing yourself, and I try to come in here and give it hell for 45 minutes, and then if I'm staying up to the point of the 2 hours, it's got to make sense. When I fight for 6 2-minute rounds, I practice for 6 2-minute rounds at a high pace, a very high pace. It's hard to keep up with the pressure I put on you. Otherwise, if I was training for 12-minute rounds, 12 round fights, like boxing, 12 3-minute rounds, I would train differently. I would be in the gym longer sometimes. Sometimes I give the kids speeches. Like after a big win, I'll come and I'll tell them, how proud I am of them, all the hard work they do, that their parents are a huge part of it for them, because they come, they drop their kids off, they sit and they watch. A lot of parents are involved in the boxing. They go to the shows. These kids compete in Golden Gloves, this and that. A few kids compete in nationals. I have nothing but honor and respect for those families, and they're putting their kids in there, and those kids work hard, and there's little boys, little girls, there's older boys, there's young men, and they're hard to keep up with. At the MMA gym that day that I sparred and trained with all the black belts, and I did MMA, when it was time to leave, I was talking a little bit of shit. I was like, I know y'all see me leaving and not doing these jiu-jitsu rounds after practice, but I just whooped some ass, and I'll out-grapple any one of you sitting there not doing the jiu-jitsu rounds. So then the coach, Julian Williams, comes over, puts the microphone in my face. I'm like, I'm calling myself out here. He made me call myself out. I said the same thing on the microphone. I'll out-grapple y'all. He's like, call him out, man. I called out one of the homies. Everybody's like, oh, his jiu-jitsu's really good. Man, knee bar sweep, got the leg, tacked the arm bar, boom, tapped his ass out with the arm bar, bro. I was proud of myself.
I love it.
Got it.
You should be proud. Hey, I gotta ask you something. Like, we're still learning in MMA how to train. Like, it's still changing, it's still evolving. Just for an example, but 3 years ago we were sparring 5 days a week, and now they're sparring twice a week at a max, and some gyms are even one. So my only point being, as we're still learning, Paulie Malignaggi, when he got into bare knuckle, Paulie started working the mitts and the heavy bag and the speed. Everything he would do in the gym, he would do bare knuckle, because he thought that was the way that you prepare for bare knuckle. Is Paulie right? Like is that how you would prepare? Do you not wrap your hands and put gloves on in the gym?
I do. I practice both. Now, if I go to the gym and I practice bare knuckle, sometimes I won't even wrap the wrists, and I'll practice strengthening my wrists that way. But then, I got one round of that, and I can beat up the skin on my knuckles, burns away, and then that just becomes this annoyance that you don't want to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So sometimes I'll be feeling froggy after training for a while, and I'll still have a couple weeks left, and I'll practice some bare knuckle, but then I wrap and I cover. And sometimes when I spar, I do the bare knuckle wrap where I don't cover the knuckles. So I'm putting my knuckles in the 16-ounce boxing glove, and just my wrist and thumb is wrapped. And my training partners understand, no one thinks it's like a different punch or anything. It still has a 16-ounce glove on it. We wear headgear. I hit mitts with gloves, and I also hit mitts without gloves. The mitts don't do as much damage to my knuckles as a heavy bag would, and it's good practice, good warm-up, but you definitely got to practice all of it.
All right, but that's a good question. That's a good question for you too, Chael, because like all these styles are different, right? And nobody knows what the perfect scenario is, or we'd all fucking do it, right? But like when I had the fortune to train with Roy Jones Jr. for a boxing match, right? And Roy's philosophy was like, you spar once a week, right? Like, I'm trying to work on your footwork and this and that. We spar once a week. You do it more than that, it's kind of overkill. So you got, what was your regimen back in the day? And then you look at guys like Strickland, right? Where all they do is spar. You know, Mike spars at 100%. Some guys spar at 70%. What was your regimen back in the day when you were, you know, really at your peak versus what is your regimen now upcoming for Anderson?
So I came through Team Quest. And we were a huge name at one point. Now I don't believe Team Quest even competes in MMA. I think it's more like, you know, fitness and a gym for exercise. And I only share with you that I was kind of on that cutting when things were changing. When I was a wrestler that I wasn't treated in a certain way by society like I am now, but I also didn't demand to be treated that way. I didn't know I had a dangerous skill set, and neither did anybody else. And I never had to whip anybody to start getting treated nicely in the hallways at school, by the way. Dan Severn went through the UFC, and even though he lost to Hoist Gracie, Dan Severn got all us wrestlers this weird amount of respect. So I start with that to tell you that as soon as we put gloves on, we had a way to go in the sport. Having that wrestling background, as soon as we put gloves on, we had a way to go out in this kind of competition. And there was years with an S where every single day I would show up to practice and there was only 4 or 5 of us. And every single day at 3 o'clock, we would have the same conversation, which was simply big gloves or little gloves. It would then be a popular opinion vote. Didn't matter what we did the day before. It would be a popular vote. We would put whatever glove on won the day, set the clock, and it would ding every 5 minutes. And we would just go live. That was it. What? You had a few minutes to warm up on your own, and then somebody would say, hey, is everybody warm? And and we just went rounds. And there was no technique, there was no teaching, there was no warm-up, there was no cool-down, there was no conditioning. I mean, when I tell you this is all that we did, we had guys coming from around the world to train with us and to be with us. And it was all that we did. We had no head coach. In fact, Robert Follis, rest his soul, is now a very legendary coach. But at the time, he was a bartender and he was a dude in the room that had a fight dream like the rest of us. At some point, he realized I don't want to compete anymore, started to really learn the sport and bring it to us. But that's the first time we ever had like an official practice. And when I keep saying we had Randy Couture was a champion of the world twice. He'd won it, left this, and came back and beat Kevin Random, 2 world championships. Dan Henderson was the champion of Pride. Matt Lindland wasn't a champion, but he was ranked number 1, and that was all that we did. I didn't have the fog. And if somebody ever learned to move, oh my God, we would be so excited. Like there was one day where they learned a Kimura, and you know it's, but you have to take it out. If the guy gets it stuck inside, it won't work. You gotta get it outside and turn the shoulder. We practiced that we were so proud of ourselves. John Lewis came to town one time and showed us a guard pass where you put your hand in between, you pass like it was a cradle. And I'm only telling you that because we kept that for like 2 months. And then really thought we were dangerous, thought we were really well-rounded. First time we ever shadow boxed, like, well, you know, I got hands now, and I got the wrestling to go with it. I guess I'm the new Marco Huaz. But we didn't know any different. And we were winning world championships. Dude, that's garbage. What I just explained to you, I can't believe that we did that. But one thing, Bags, if I could just add this, we always took care of each other. There was never a day where we were fighting. It was always sparring. And Randy Couture was the master of this. Like, if you got out of line, I mean, it was Animal Kingdom in there, and he was the alpha. But if you got out of line, he wouldn't say a word to you. He would just grab you for one of the goes, and then he would up the intensity. And that's how you learned. I stepped out of line, but it's also how you got dealt with. And I tell you that because, where these guys are going once or twice now, I'm not. I'm getting ready for Anderson. I spar every single day, which I know is not what they're doing. I spar every single day, but I don't go as hard. Right, the first time I was ever in a fight in practice was with Jason Mayhem Miller. And he hit me with a cross, and he hit me so hard that I put my hands down, and I paused so that he could apologize to me. He did not apologize to me. He hit me with another left hand, and that's right, whoa! What do we do? I was on the road. I was in California. I'd never trained outside of the Team Quest room before. I didn't know that other gyms, they put on the safety equipment, but then they fight. That was not how I came up.
Are you talking about the fight in 2002 where you beat him, or are you talking about a sparring session?
No, I actually had a sparring session. That was how we met.
So was that before or after?
Yeah, after.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, many years after. That's how I met him, and that's a very hard fight, by the way. I mean, I got $500 for it. I think he got $350, and we're out on a reservation in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there was a lot that went into that. Dana White was in the front row, and Tito Ortiz put it on, and I'm name dropping now, but I'm just sharing that was just one of the fights on the card. We weren't featured or a main event, or we were nothing like that. And in hindsight, that's a pretty hard fight.
You know what's interesting about what you said, though, is like fans and me, even 5 years ago, right? Like I went through my buddy was a strength and conditioning coach for the Cowboys. And so when they launched Jerry's World, I got to go through their practice facilities, right? Guys, they have a 50-yard indoor field, like an arena with like 3,000 seats as their practice field if it's raining, right? Like the biggest weight room you've ever seen. You know, cold plunges, hot plunges, 24/7 masseuses on staff, right? And I think the casual fan literally thinks this is what you guys have had for years, right? And it's like completely the fucking opposite of that.
No, well said, man. I mean, it was so hard to come, and there was no such thing as an MMA gym. I mean, to your point, Bags, like, you would find a space. Evan Tanner, rest his soul, fought for a world championship off of a DVD that he put into something called a VHS, a monthly subscription to Black Belt Magazine, where they would show a technique session, and his living room, where he would move the coffee table, and his buddy and co-worker would come, and they'd work on things. And he made it to the finals. He lost to Tito for the world title. And that was off of that, not one day of actual training. And I tell you that because that's what our gyms were like. If we could get access to a wrestling room. Now, the coach is going to throw you out as soon as he sees you throwing punches. So you got to kind of plan it right and come in after hours. But that would be a great gym. Hammer House was a major gym. And what nobody knows is that was a heavy bag on Mark Coleman's porch. Like, nobody knows Hammer House didn't really exist. So, yeah, when you bring up some of these accommodations, we definitely made do. And we were not welcome. It wasn't like, you know, hey, come on in. We're happy to have you guys. Even our own wrestling community, Team Quest with a bunch of former wrestlers, we were not just welcomed by the junior highs or the high schools. Again, as soon as the punches, or we weren't wearing shoes and we were on the mat, and then that was a strange thing. I used to not tell people. I was signed to the UFC and I didn't tell people. I remember getting a haircut and she said, "What do you do?" And I did not say UFC or MMA, even though I was proud. And the reason I didn't is they wouldn't have known what it meant. And then I had to go through the whole thing. Well, is it boxing or is it wrestling? Or are you doing what? And yeah, so when you talk about the facilities we have, my goodness, we had no support anywhere, including the facilities.
So I'm really sorry about my technical difficulties, Chael. I had some poverty New Mexico internet for a little bit, but I've sorted it out. I'm back. I'm here. So let me get this straight. Is this what you were saying? You're saying, because Team Quest, obviously I remember that. You could, choose Team Quest back in like the THQ UFC games to be your gym. You come up through all this stuff. But you're saying, because I don't think I've ever heard that story, because I know you guys were all wrestlers, but you're like a 3-time Pac-10 champion, and you guys just kind of said, like, fuck it, we'll figure striking out. Let's just get in there, and we'll take a popular vote on which gloves to wear today, and we're just going to figure this shit out.
Yeah, and not only that, like, it wasn't, the way you say it makes it sound very courageous, like we had this deep belief in ourselves. It wasn't that, it was purely in ignorance. We did not know that there was a different system. And the way fighting worked back then is, like, the term MMA, a lot of people kind of miss this, but I go back to 1993, which was just renting the UFC, Mobile, Alabama, something called the Ultimate Fighting Championship, no rules, no time limits, like all of this stuff. I was a fan, the same way as I am right now. I'm a fan. So, in fact, I got one of my favorite fighters is sitting right up there in the white shirt, but I got to tell you this. Okay, here's how I would say it to you. We were a group of wrestlers. It was Dan Henderson, Randy Couture, and I. And we got together every day at 3, and we wrestled. We were trying to make an Olympic team in 2000. When the trials ended, none of us made all of our dreams were dashed. But like Pavlov's dog, I still showed up to practice at 3 o'clock the next day. And they never said a word to me. They threw me a pair of gloves that one of them brought, and they said, "We're doing this today." Or I think they said, "We're doing this now." At any rate, I just took my shoes off and put the gloves on. There was never an invitation or am I part of it. But my opponents, when I would fight, were doing the same thing. Maybe they had a wrestling background. Maybe they were a current wrestler. Maybe they found a jiu-jitsu gym. By the way, at one point, there was only 6 Gracie certified jiu-jitsu gyms in all of America. That was in 1994, in fact, because I went and found one of them. Pedro Sowers, he was the number 6, is why I know that statistic. And then you couldn't get into a boxing gym. They're hard enough to find, but you wouldn't be welcome, right? That's like for 9 and 10 and 11-year-old kids. There was no such thing as like a kickboxing or Muay Thai gym. So what Evan Tanner was doing of learning in his living room, to a degree, that's what we were all doing. And as bad as it sounds, it's what your opponent was doing too. None of us knew. There was no such thing as an MMA coach. You couldn't make a living at it. There was no such thing as an MMA gym. Nobody would come sign up. So that's what the sport was. Like, as weird as we still worked hard and we were sacrificed and we were disciplined, but we were trying to figure out what it takes to be a cage fighter. The first cage fighter I ever met, Tank Abbott. And by the way, bad rep. That dude is so nice in person. But I'm looking at Tank Abbott, who I admire. He's doing what it is I want to do. And I'm figuring I'm going to have to cut my hair short. I'm going to have to get tattoos. I'm going to have to start drinking beer and getting fights around town. Like, that's what it takes. And there was a period of time, Randy Couture's the first to change that showed the entire world that a world-class athlete with discipline and a plan and a work ethic, Randy really changed the sport. He never really gets recognized for that, but he did.
I've got two questions for you to lead off of that, because I was going to ask this earlier. First one has to do with the wrestling. So how do you feel now seeing wrestlers be so dominant across the UFC, right? Like, I mean, it just is.
That's what I was
like
gonna
when I talked to John Jones one time, and I said, "What is the key?" And he said, "Wrestling is the key to the UFC, to MMA, to being top level." Now, obviously, you have to have a skill set outside of that. He's like, but to me, that is the most critical. And then Mike and I were in Miami this weekend with the Kawas, and we had this discussion as well. And it was the same thing, right? The Kawas were like, look, I can take really solid, D2 guys and turn them into MMA fighters just because the way the sport has evolved. You look at people like Bo Nickel, right? Bo's obviously, he's shown that he's got hands too, but top tier, once in a generation type of wrestler that now is climbing up those ranks. And then you obviously look at the Kazakhstani guys and Islam and all the rest of them. So that's the first one. The second one is, where do you think Mike Perry goes next in bare knuckle, right? Because we've had this conversation last week, and it was like, all right, Luke Rockhold quit, Eddie Alvarez quit, Thiago Silva, first round knockout. Thiago never gets knocked out, right? So like, who brings any kind of name value now that has the balls to step in there and be the next fight for Mike in BKFC?
Dave Feldman might be the nicest promoter in the business, because Dave Feldman has never come out and told the world the truth, which is how many freaking cowards he spoke to on the phone. He cannot offer enough money. He cannot spot you enough pounds. Mike's having to fight guys that fight 2 and 3 weight classes higher just to get in there. And it's one of these things. See, Mike Perry's not just going to beat you. Mike Perry's going to hurt you, and that's a very different proposition. That is a wildly different deal than facing like a Damian Maia. You're not likely, and he's really good, and you're going to get embarrassed. Getting busted up versus embarrassed is, I'm just sharing with you, it's a very different thing. Not to mention by a smaller guy. Not to mention, nobody knows who his trainer is or where his coach is. He's got a girl in his corner. Like, there's a lot of reasons you don't want to get beat up by Mike Perry, right? Mike Perry has the it factor. I watched a video, and it was on Instagram of Mike Perry in traffic saving a turtle. And I tell people this story all the time because I must have watched that thing 15 times. I forwarded that thing. I reposted. I've never done that. I'm sending this off to people. They're saying, who is that? How do you know that guy? What? I'm like, that's an MMA guy. And people got interested. But it was then that I knew that he's got the it factor. I was at T-Mobile one night. Some kind of music hits, and it might have even been the opponent's music, but Perry starts salsa dancing. He's in the corner, and he's dancing. I just wanted to keep... I was so pissed off that when they pulled the camera off of Perry, it's like, go back to him. The fight ends. Both guys leave, and when I went on ESPN that night, I said the best part of the night is when Mike Perry walked through the curtain, and the worst part of the night is when Mike Perry walked through the curtain. And I only tell that because you're asking me what's Perry supposed to do. The guy's a star. How? How is Mike Perry a star? And we've only got 2.
I'll tell you how.
We've only got 2, though. Usyk isn't the star.
Because what y'all were just talking about before you said all those nice things about me, it's the way you guys came up training. I'm old school like that. I believe in, hard work and just figuring things out as you go. I grew up being trained by Marines and old men who started in the fight business. We're the last of a dying breed. And there's not a lot of men. They don't make a lot of men like this anymore. I'm like an old school guy. I'm much more mature for my age. I don't have to dress like this, but I sure don't mind it.
I would still be curious, and I bet you Mike, you'd have a hard time actually rhetorically answering this. Where the courage comes from? Where does that self-confidence come from? I was a fan of yours. I didn't believe in you. I enjoyed watching you. I didn't think you could win. Let me give you a great example. You were set up in that Triller match. I guarantee when that phone call went to that dude, he's like, you're not going to believe this, but Mike Perry said yes. And the other dude's like, Mike Perry, the MMA fighter, like, yeah, he agreed to do it. And then you went out and beat the guy. And it was just, but that was a big moment. That's where you go, whoa, this dude can compete. Mike Perry can, I thought Mike Perry was supposed to get tired in 3 minutes. How did he just go 5 rounds with the top guy in the world? Oh, by the way, and win the last round. Like, it was a massive eye-opening pullback moment. And then, you got in way too deep. You don't belong in there with MVP. You don't belong in there with Eddie Alvarez. You can't go with Luke. He's just too big. And you start looking around going, what is going on here? You bring up Thiago, man. I like Thiago a lot, but I've sailed a few in myself before. When you get scared and you got to get out of there, we don't ever like to talk about it, but I know it when I see it. And I'm just saying, it's like, so you ask the whole thing, the whole diatribe I'm going, you ask me who's next for Perry. Well, let's start with this. Who is willing to go fight Perry? Feldman will give you a ton of money. He'll make you a star. He'll make you a main event. You're going to have a sold-out crowd. But now, by a show of hands, who would like to face Perry? And that is a problem to try to answer.
We know Darren Till ain't one of them.
Yep. Hey, what is the deal with that? What is the deal with that? Because Till he's got this bravado in public, but I mean, obviously he's been offered the match. What is the story there?
He doesn't want to do a bare knuckle. He's trying to save his face. For what? He ain't getting none. What you saving your face for?
But has he said that? Has he said, "Hey guys, I just don't want to do bare knuckle"? He said it. Okay.
He just wants to save his face. He's not ready. He thinks that the bare knuckle would be something maybe he would do at the end of his career.
He's off the hook.
And that this isn't the end.
If he said that, he's off the hook. I thought he played one thing and then told Dave something different, like all the other guys. Darren's off the hook if he fessed up to that.
So let me tell you a quick story, Chael, that I think you'll like. Is I went with Mike to Salt Lake City, and he was fighting Eddie Alvarez, right? And I had the opportunity to be in his corner. Of course, that first round was bloody, right? These boys were just banging the entire first round. Comes back, like, I'm not used to this shit. Like, I'm almost gagging. This shit is so, like, hardcore, right? And so I'm just sitting there. I'm like, all right. Him and his coach are talking. Comes back out, murders Eddie. Second round, Eddie refuses to come back out, right? So we go back in the locker room. We're heading out to the car, and it's just me and Mike walking and just bullshitting. And Mike's like, yo, man, like, do you think it would have been bigger if I would have, like, knocked him out or this or that? And I was like, here's the thing, Mike. If you would have knocked out Eddie Alvarez, everybody would have been, all of Twitter and everything else would have blown up, and the response would have been, Eddie was washed, shouldn't have been in there with Mike, right? Like, is there anything bigger? And this is kind of what you pointed on earlier. You made Luke Rockhold take his mouthpiece off and just drop it on the ground and walk out of the ring. You made Eddie Alvarez not come out for the third round, right? You knocked down Thiago. Thiago wasn't clean out. Thiago just damn sure didn't want to get back up and feel it again because he knew exactly what was going to happen. There's nothing more, like, embarrassing from a fight perspective than you just being like, man, fuck it. I'm overpowered here and I quit. I just don't want to come back out.
Yep. And we've all done it, and we never call each other out on it, and we don't call each other out because, to your point, it's the most important thing. It's that heart and that grit. And we all know the world sees us this way, but inside, there's still that little boy, right? It can get a little bit spooked. So we never call each other out because eventually it will be us, and it is. It is a very frightening proposition. Like, when Mike Perry's not going to point you, and he's not going to strangle you. He's going to bludgeon you, and if you get back up, you might win a round. You might be going to win the fight and win 3 rounds. He'll still knock your tooth out just for the sake of it. If Mike Perry knew he was going to lose, he will knock your teeth out anyway. He's a very mean guy when he fights. I mean, there is a viciousness that you just can't duplicate, right? You got sportsmen, and then you got fighters, and Perry is a fighter.
A lot of my learning curve was in the UFC. You know, I was figuring out all the training aspects of high-level professionalism as a pro athlete in the UFC, and I was just taking fights. I was just taking them. Like, there's guys who are in the UFC twice as long as I was over, I was there for 5.5 years, and they don't have as many fights as I had. In 5.5 years, I got 15. There's people who were there for 10 or more and don't have 15.
Sure, it's very true.
So
My only
I just
resentment,
did a lot of my learning there.
my only resentment towards our sport is that we only get to do it 3 times a year. I came up in the tournaments, and I got to do a couple of those. By the time I came around, it wasn't 8-man anymore. It was 4. But you still got 2 matches in one night. You got to go home and feel good about yourself. You got to be stiff and sore and build these memories and have a VHS to go and watch with your mom. Then I can have a couple of matches. I hate that we only get three fights a year. And then, Mike, to your point, we got a hard time getting guys who are volunteer army. At one point, they have begged for the opportunity. They have raised their hand. They said, I want to do this. And then they get a phone call against who's going to be across from them. And all of a sudden, they forgot all those things. They've made enough money. They don't feel good. Try me another time. Offer me a different opponent. What's the weight class? I was 7 fights in before I even saw a scale. And they didn't weigh it. We didn't have weight classes, but they did put you up for marketing reasons. I didn't even see a scale for 7 fights.
So to speak to the mentality, right? Because you're like, there's sportsmen and there's fucking fighters, and Perry has got that mentality. After every single one of the 3 fights, directly after, I'm like, yo, you fucking, what a banger, dude. You just took him out. And Mike was mad because they quit, because he wanted to keep going. Like, not just like to say he wanted to keep going. He literally wanted to keep going so he could finish every single one of them. And that to me is just like, it's a different mindset.
I fully agree. Matt Lindland, if you remember. Well, most guys pretend, I want to fight and I love to do this. This is what I was born to do. They kind of say all the same things, but there's very few guys that really want to fight. I mean, that's kind of a weird hobby. You want to play golf or you want to go watch TV. But Matt Lindland is what you just described. Like, he was a true competitor. And I remember the push, like the begging, and nobody was there to see it. It was Matt Lindland to Mark Ratner in Nevada. But he was begging that Mark changed the rules so that they could do soccer kicks to a grounded opponent. And I don't want to be soccer kick, but I don't want to kick somebody else with a soccer kick. Do you guys remember that? Where you're on your hands and knees and you come boot him in the head like you would a soccer ball. That's why I got called a soccer kick. They were doing that in Japan. Vanderlei was doing that. And Matt was so jealous that Vanderlei got to do that and he didn't. And he even told Mark Brown, I'm gonna go to Japan then. I'm gonna go to Japan and fight Vanderlei. This is when everybody in the world was scared of Vanderlei. He just wanted to kick a guy on the ground. And I'm just sharing, like, some guys pretend they want to fight, and then in your whole life you'll meet 2 or 3 or 4 that actually like to do that with their time. They prefer it, as a matter of fact. And Matt Lindland, very similar to what you said about Perry. Matt Lindland had a fight stopped early in his career. He's going to pay $1,000. And Matt's wife needed a dental procedure that was $1,000. They didn't have insurance. So he goes all the way to Mexico. He beats this dude up, and the dude complains. And so Matt clears his corner out and tells them, clear your corner out. Let's just redo the fight if you're going to complain. Believe it or not, they did it. There was no commissions back then. They cleared the ring, they re-put the gloves on, and they re-ring the bell, and Matt had to beat this guy a second time just to get that same $1,000. So, yeah, Bags, what you're talking about is a very rare mentality.
Man, that's a wild fucking story. I do want to hit back to the wrestling part, right? Because it is becoming like the thing right now. Like, it's exploded across like middle school levels and high school levels, right? Because it gives you now an opportunity to potentially build a base to go into the UFC or go into another organization or whatever. And you were one of those guys that laid the groundwork, right, for that. So how do you like seeing that evolve over the last, decade? It's like, I was fucking part of this revolution on a global scale.
Well, and a man can't do anything if a man doesn't have hope. Like hope is a really big deal. And for a wrestler, it's hard to get a kid to go into that environment. It's a very difficult sport. The chicks don't dig it. Like, wearing a Letterman jacket and getting for wrestling, you got to wear this ridiculous outfit. I mean, there's a lot of things that's kind of hard to tell a guy why he should come and do this. And then what do you do when you're 23? I mean, let's just say you're in that very rare 0.1% that gets to do it after high school. What do you do after college? And this finally answered that question. It's at least hope. Now, you might not get there, and might not even want to get there, but you could. And it changes things, and there is a pride in that. And I have that was a huge compliment you just paid me, saying that I was on that edge, because I look up to the guys, the Mark Colemans, Randy Couture's, Mark Kerr, who they're making a movie after. I looked up to these guys. I didn't know I was one of them till you just said it. I didn't know that I helped to represent and bring wrestlers over, but I mean, that's tremendous. Wrestling, if I could tell you this, one of the reasons it's so important, because if you don't have it, you're not going to have it. But let me tell you why. It's very hard to find an MMA gym. They're out there. It's hard. It's very hard to find a boxing gym. They're out there, but you got to really look for them. You'll never find a wrestling gym. Wrestling is only done in our schools. It's not done in every junior college. There's a basketball court in every park in the world. There's not a wrestling room. There's not a wrestling mat. You got to. It's an age group thing. So now if you want to wrestle, you got to go back to the high school. So now you, as a signed fighter on pay-per-view, big scary cage fighter, are going to get your ass kicked by teenager. If you haven't wrestled before, these sophomores and juniors in high school are going to put it on you. So now you have to humble yourself, and nobody's there to see it, but you'll know, and it's hard for guys. And it was really a key to success. Like, I looked up to Randy Couture, Dan Henderson, but one of the things I admired about these guys was their ability to extend their career, because it is a game, and there is something fun about the lifestyle. And one thing that they were both very good at doing is they would go back to those high schools. Even if it meant they took a beating, they would take that beating in private. But it kept them fresh, it kept them in shape, and it also stopped that next generation from passing them by because they stayed involved with that next generation.
Yeah. So, wrestling has always been regarded as, I mean, they proved it pretty early. You know, wrestling's the best base for MMA. That's what pretty much any serious person would tell you. Do you think Sambo's taking it over at this point, or would you consider them the same thing? Like, what do you think about Sambo?
It's very interesting, and I'll tell you why. And let me use judo as an example. I got a hard time from the judo community because I was said that I talk trash about judo, but I've never meant to, and I've never seen myself that way. Here's my statement: judo has never won within MMA. And, of course, I'm excluding Ronda. That's a true statement by me. But I'll go a little bit further. Absolutely. Judo has never been in a title fight. Not only has judo never won the championship, they were never in the fight for the championship. In fact, I'll back it up one more step. There's never been a judo practitioner that was in a number one contenders match that would qualify them for a title fight. It has no level of success. That's a true statement. And I would just wonder why. I have my own hypothesis, such as it's a niche sport. It's not in the schools. It's not in the junior highs. You can't get a scholarship for it. You can't go, to some of the bigger and more prestigious events and find judo. It's very rare. Sambo is a step further to where the International Olympic Committee does not even recognize them as a sport. So you got this extremely rare, like if you told me, all right, Chael, give you $1,000, but you got to be to a judo gym in an hour or a Sambo gym, I would have no idea where to go. If you go, I'll give you $1 million, but by tonight, you got to own a Sambo gi. I wouldn't know where to go to buy one. I'll give you $1 million, and you need to have a personal Sambo coach by tonight. It's like, I don't know who I would call. I mean, it's one of these really rare things, and they tell me it works, and Khabib puts his name on it. But I feel like he's put his name on it to be nice. It's the represented martial art of the country of Russia, and that means they're military. So if you're a patriotic person, you always tie to the military and you claim you did Sambo because Putin likes Sambo. Other than that, I don't think there's any truth. I don't know anybody that does Sambo. I'm a fighter. I've never in my life met a Sambo player.
At the end of the day, it's U.S. versus Russian wrestlers.
Wrestling, right?
It's wrestling at the end of the day.
It's American wrestling. Who started wrestling? Was it the Americans or was it the Russians or was it the Greeks?
Sure.
Was Hercules a wrestler? Who started wrestling?
I'm sitting on something.
Alexander the Great.
You guys want to know why I've been so twitchy? I'm over here, so I don't know if you can see me sweat. You want to know why? Because I'm sitting on something. I'm sitting on something, and I'm wondering if I should say it or if I'm going to regret saying it. Bags, you asked me 15 minutes ago, who's going to fight Perry? Let me think of how I'm going to word this. I will tell you, Gilbert Melendez is in training for Perry. I will tell you that.
What?
Gilbert was not offered Perry. Somewhere along the way, Gilbert got word or he got wind, and nobody smaller than Perry will fight Perry. Like, it's a prerequisite. You're going to go to a bigger guy because nobody wants to do it. And Gilbert thought, well, that's going to change, and eventually they're going to come to the other side or his size. You want to know who's on the short list to fight Mike Perry? Gilbert Melendez is preparing to fight Mike Perry. I'll leave it at that.
That's incredible.
I'm not making believe that he was offered the fight, but he believes he's going to be offered the fight. And when he is, he's going to accept it.
And Gilbert had hands, for sure.
Yep.
In fact, Chael, that's the one time I've been around you in person. I watched, UFC 297 from the ESPN booth with my friend Bane, Ian Parker. Shout out him, invited us over there. And you and Gilbert were doing your job. And Gilbert and I spoke a little bit, but you were in the zone, and so I had to I was like, I'm gonna let Chael do his thing. If I get a chance to go over there and introduce myself, maybe snag a selfie, I will. But you're too busy, man. That energy you always have.
I appreciate
right there,
that,
bro.
I really appreciate that. Hey, you want to know something? Again, I like talking about Mike like he's not here, but it's a little bit more fun if people like behind his back is a little bit more fun. And one thing about it is when Perry gets spoke about, people will say that he's a trash talker. And it's like, no, he's not. He's just a perceived trash talker. I don't agree. I've never heard him put somebody down. I've never heard him curse at somebody. I've never seen him try to lift himself up or even try to promote a fight. Now, the other side of it is he has a confidence in himself that none of us believed he really had. That's where the confusion comes. When Mike Perry would come out and say, I'm going to beat this guy, I'm going to stop this guy, this guy's not strong enough, we thought that was just talk to convince himself. We didn't know he actually believed and meant it. And the reason I tell you that is Gilbert's not going to talk any trash, but I don't think Mike would talk trash to him. Like, it's these two guys that really respect each other. But at the end of the day, you got the face of bare knuckle against a dirty, rotten Mexican fighter that wants to do it. I mean, not for nothing. I don't think you have to sell it beyond what I just did. That's an interesting fight.
Well, I think Diego Sanchez versus Melendez should have been Fight of the Year 2014 instead of John Jones versus Gustafsson. I don't care. I'll stand on that till the day I die. Gilbert's got hands.
What is going on with Diego Sanchez, by the way? Like supposedly he had some guy around him that was stealing his money, or what is going on with Diego? Are these things true, or is that a troll job?
No, it's true. Everyone in New Mexico has stories about Diego Sanchez. I mean, I know like 5 of his cousins, but Diego, he was with that guy. You remember, man, I'm going to forget his Joshua Fabia. The one that was like yeah, bro. I think Diego's susceptible to like that type of weird, just those weird guys that come in. Dude, Joshua Fabia had no idea. You seen the video of him hanging upside down while he's punching him in the face and shit? I don't know, man. If you're going to fall for that, and he stole a bunch of money from him, I forget the whole story because it was so bizarre, but is that the one you're speaking about or one after? Because it's happened a couple times.
That's it 100%, and I did see those videos, but because I saw those, and because those were so... There was a video going around where he was in a knife with a cage, and, there's a few people, and they couldn't leave, but, it might have even been a sword. I thought they were trolling us. I'm like, hey, there's no...
I was going to go to one.
Yeah,
I was going to sign up to go to one to get answers.
It was other people saying, no, that's not a troll job. He's actually doing it. And I've never known. And Diego's, everyone likes him. He's a smart enough guy. I just want to think that something like that would happen to him.
He was dead ass serious. Both of them were dead ass serious. And then apparently,
not a lot of people can say that Diego Sanchez has a story about them. I've been hanging out with Diego out there in New Mexico, and he's got some stories about me. I'll wait to see if those come out sometime, if he's going to say anything. Also, the Gilbert Melendez thing. Last time I saw him, I was grappling Gordon Ramsay. That wasn't good for me. That motherfucker is 275 pounds of raw strength. I was and steroided up, and it's just... My butterfly guard does nothing to him. He's too heavy.
He's incredible.
Did he cook a burger after
Gilbert
that?
Melendez was there grappling tiny little Dominic Cruz. So that's weird for me to hear that he's.
Who won that match?
They were scrambling. They were scrambling all over the place. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
And then I grappled Jake Shields as well. He was hot and heavy, breathing all in my ear. He was fucking trying to get all over me. I'm like, bro, chill out, bro. I don't even grapple anymore, man.
But he won't stop, right, Mike? I've been with Jake Shields too, where he's exhausted, but he will not stop. Like, he does have that. He's got that iron will, and when you traded him, you could feel it. Like, yep, this guy wants to win. Gordon Ramsay,
we can run that back too. Run that back, but I just don't like grappling if I can't hit you.
Mike,
sure.
By the way,
like
it was Gordon Ryan that you grappled with. You did not grapple with Gordon Ramsay.
Well, I just thought he was in there cooking, man. Chefing it up.
You felt like he was cooking when he was on top of you, didn't you?
I was at a Mike Perry fight, and so I'm backstage. We get there early. The crowd's still filing in, and I get assigned to do something. It's something with a camera. I can't quite remember the capacity, but when Mike comes in, he's got his beautiful girl with him, and he's in an outfit though. It's some kind of an outfit. I don't recognize it, but it's an outfit. It's this one piece, and kind of. But I finally said, man, what are you dressed as? He said, janitor. I said, how come? And he said, I'm going to clean up. And I just sat. I don't even know if I spoke to him again that night. I was just like this. I'm in the presence of a genius. And the cameras weren't even on. This was him without the cameras on. I remember just going, I can never retell that. Nobody's going to believe that, but that's the moment we needed to capture. I'm going to clean up. Showed up dressed as a I don't think anybody even saw him but me.
That's fucking
That's the
hilarious.
attitude.
I was a clean-ass janitor. I posted a picture of that moment where I got to sit with the great Chael, and he did a little interview, and he was quick on me. He gave Luke a lot more time. He didn't expect that I was going to go out there and punch on the bigger guy. He thought Luke was going to be able to take my shot, and he did take the shot well. I mean, for it to knock his teeth out and he's still standing, he took it well.
He was too big. Luke Rockhold was just simply too big for you. I mean, that's where the conversation
I need to back the
stopped.
truck up a little bit.
Yep.
I need to back the truck up
Okay.
a little bit. Because Mike jumped in, but you, I believe, said Mike is a superstar and there's two.
Yep.
And you said Usyk was the other one.
No,
Usyk.
I got cut off. I was getting Usyk is
Yeah, I
not.
got cut off. I wanted to know.
Usyk is not one. I brought Usyk in, heavyweight,
gotcha,
real
gotcha,
successful
gotcha.
guy and represents his country real well. He's not. It's Mike Perry and Conor McGregor. There are only two guys where it doesn't matter who the opponent is. Like whatever Mike Perry does, and Dave Feldman has gone out of his way. Dave's coming up with the money. He's bringing in the names. He's doing the press conferences. But let's just say he didn't. Let's say he cut the budget and he didn't go to a veteran that you knew. That building's going to be sold out. People are now tuning in to see Mike Perry. I mean, that match that I brought to you, for example, from Triller. That dude was second in the world, but I wouldn't recognize him if he walked here and slapped me right now. I'm sharing for you. Like, that's not what it is. Perry's not going down the card. Perry's not going to be a co-main event no matter who you bring in. He's not going to open up the main... He's walking out last. He's the star. He's the one Conor McGregor's flying in to see. And I'm just sharing with you, there's only Perry and there's Conor. Whatever Conor does, it could be bare knuckle. He could go box Manny or he could do MMA. He's going to draw. The other star is Mike Perry. That's the only two stars that we have that can do it on their own.
Well, how about you, sir? We all excited to see, unless y'all are messing with us, Anderson Silva, Chael Sonnen back in the ring, fighting.
I forgot all about
It's
it.
happening.
I swear to God,
Amazing.
I forgot until you just brought it up, and it's all I could think about. Mike, when you get these fights, as soon as it gets signed, like you're driving in traffic, but all you're thinking about is that guy. Or you're resting and watching TV, and you're thinking, well, is he somewhere resting? Do I need to get up and grab my jump rope and get in the garage? Like, it's one of these things. You guys have been a very nice distraction, because I got to get in shape. I got to deal with a dude that's whipped my ass twice. I got to lose 18 pounds, and I got to do it all in 19 days.
Well, the community's been pumped about it, man. They're not always pumped for these like legacy fights. But when you talked about to go back to one quick thing, when you talked about how Mike Perry doesn't like go out there to talk trash,
Yeah.
the janitor outfit is literally a point of what you're talking about. It's him boosting him.
Yeah.
This is just how he does it. That didn't ever make the headlines. You know, that wasn't pushed out there. It's self-belief, and if you talk shit to Perry, he'll say some shit back, but he's not out there putting on a spectacle for everybody else. It's himself.
Yep.
I'm wearing a janitor suit because I'm going to go out there and clean up. This isn't going to be a social post.
When Luke Rockhold, Mac, to your point though, when Luke, you talk about confidence, right? Confidence comes in numbers. There's power in numbers. There's a lot of guys that they surround themselves with some real badass and they start to believe in themselves. Luke Rockhold rolled in. He's got Crazy Bob, which is a legend. He's got Rich Chu, who's helping with the contract somewhere. He's got 3 or 4 cornermen and a couple of teammates, right? They all got wristband. They fill up this whole area. Mike walked in that outfit with his hot-ass girl, and that was it. If he had backup anywhere, I never saw it. If he had his boys with him, they didn't come in the room I was in. Nobody, he walked out last, stopped a future Hall of Famer. I mean, I'm just saying, this doesn't happen. This has nothing to do with Mike sitting here. By the way, this is just what happened. I'm not building him up. Yep. That's what happened.
We were talking about the Silva, and I'm just so interested in seeing Chael box now. And I just, I keep saying this old guy thing, but there's nothing wrong. It's just being the last of a dying breed. And, there's always that picture of the old guy who he knows how to fucking throw a punch, and he's got his hands like this. And, if it was a street fight, where's that picture? It says, I threw a grenade. I killed 50 people. And then the grenade went off. That's Chael stepping in the boxing ring. I mean, how are you making adjustments? Because wrestlers aren't, it said before Bo Nickel, wrestlers aren't big punchers.
Yeah. Well, I got a fight up allegedly. We'll see, but with George Masvidal. And Masvidal had said those things. He called me a crotch sniffer. I wasn't familiar with the term, but that's apparently for something that takes you down and kind of like hangs out down there by your crotch. And I had a hard time. I eventually met up with Rampage, but in our careers, we could never really get it right in the back and forth. But he said that about me. He's just going to take me down and hold me there. I don't care what the rules are. I have never cared. I'm only going to follow the rules I want. I mean, like, I've been cheating at this sport from the time I got in it. I'm not going to not cheat with Anderson. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to take the padding out of my glove or if I'm going to dip them in plaster, like Margarito used to do. I'm for sure going to cheat, but I only bring that to you not to make you laugh. Like, it's really weird to ask me what I think about the rules. I'm not going to follow them anyway. And secondly, that's like a made-up thing in people's mind. I don't care if we're arm wrestling. I'm going to put the same effort. My pride's going to be the same. I'm going to be just as depressed when it's over. I'm going to train and fully focus and do just as many like, it doesn't matter what the rules are. To me, it's a fight. I'm going to try to hurt you in any position I can because you're trying to hurt me. It still starts with damage, and then we go to ring control. And I hate when a guy goes into a match because I don't even care if I win. I despise guys like that. But in fairness, I do find myself a little bit like I have to punch Anderson Silva if I'm given the chance. My wife asked me, what do you do? It's weird. Two guys, they come back, they're going to go box. Like, that's a weird thing to do. And I told my wife, I said, there's rules. There's a code in life. And there will never be a day when I can't fight that man. Not just any man, it's that one. And if he ever challenges me anywhere, ever, I have to answer it. And she understood that.
Incredible, man. What a guy, man. I mean, one of our questions on our notes was like, real estate, business. Like, how does the bad guy do what he does, man? Obviously, manifesting, you're using your words, the way that you speak is so articulated, and you could open any door you wanted with your words. So, how do you use your mouth to walk you into positions right where you want to be that opens all these business doors for you? I know you got a million to the family.
I feel like I have to show you guys this or you might not believe it. Are we live? Because I have a missed text from Gilbert Melendez and from Dave Feldman. Is that at all? I haven't opened it yet, but are we live?
No, this is not.
Is Dave going to be pissed that I... Okay.
You're good. You're good.
And I want you to put it out. I'm just wondering if it's already been put out. All right, listen. Mike, thank you for saying that. That is such a compliment. I lost my father, and rest his soul, but he was a very hard worker. And like I can't. There's some things I can't wrap my head around. Like, my dad was a plumber. That's really honest work, but that's difficult, and it's every day. If you want to get paid, you have to show up. You don't get to stay home because you don't feel good, or it rained. You have to get up and you have to go. And I could never imagine pulling out of a fight. I hear guys canceling fights, or a guy will tell you today that he's got to pull out because he's not feeling well. It's like, yeah, but the fight's 6 weeks away. How do you know you won't feel good then? And by the way, if you wake up on the day and you don't feel well, you're going to cancel the fight. Like, I couldn't imagine. I would be so ashamed. I wouldn't even show my face. But then I bring up my father. Like, I imagine he didn't feel good every day either. But he went out into a very difficult job. He didn't ever ask, what's the job? Let's renegotiate. What am I going to get paid? Let me sit down and think about it. You get a call. Somebody needs help with their water. You go help. I mean, it was a job, right? So if you're a fist fighter, I never understood the difference. We get guys that can't do the fight. We keep them in the rankings. Sometimes we'll keep a belt around them. And they have very good reasons, by the way. I don't say this without heart. But guy's injured or he needs a surgery, I have heart about it. But if the guy, for any reason, is openly telling us, I'm not tough enough to even go try to do this right now, he's got to come off the rankings. The whole thing is about right now. It's not just who the better fighter is. It's at a specific day, at a specific time. That's the way this game is played. And I only say that because it is a little bit of a dying breed, but Mike, these new guys don't even know what we went through, and that hurts my feelings. Like, I want a level of credit that I fought Mayhem Miller with no commission. We fell through the cage. Dana White hated the fight so much he banned us both from the UFC back in 2001. Fortunately, we were able to turn that around. And then we, between us, didn't even get $1,000. Like, I think when guys see that, they come out and complain that they're getting 12 and 12 or their sponsors were pulled. Well, your sponsorship got pulled because you were then given a sponsor that, frankly, you don't deserve in the first place. That brand on your back that's paying you the check that you've decided is not enough is more than anybody else would have given you because nobody knows who the F you are. And it's just one of these things where I feel like there's a lack of appreciation, or this guy misses weight by 2 pounds, and they're going to fight at 155. By example, what's the difference to what the guy weighs? I mean, that's a new phenomenon that we'd even put him on the scale. And it's better. There should be commissions. There should be weight classes. But I'm speaking about the mentality. And it is now becoming a sport. And people have always said it like that's better. It's better if it's a sport. Well, maybe. You can decide that. But sports now involve athletes. Cage fightings used to be about fighters. And that was a mentality, not a physicality. When the two came together, you had something very special. But I will maintain I still like the fighters. I like the fighters more than I do the athletes.
Do you think any part of that has to do with the fighter pay now and why it hasn't gone up, or just in general? Like, does the fact that we don't have, kind of how you're describing, like fighters anymore,
sure,
and people that are athletes and they pull out of fights or they only fight every once in a while, does that have to do with any of, like, what do you think about fighter pay in general, if you don't mind me asking?
There's a number of things that a promoter is willing to tell you, such as the market will bear the price, such as capitalistic rules that they have to follow, such as I'm willing to pay in a fair negotiation what or more than my competitor is willing to pay. They'll talk about all these things, and sometimes you'll side with them and sometimes you won't. But the one thing the promoter will never tell you, because it doesn't sound good, is if I pay a guy what I could pay him, he won't come back. And you can't talk like that. You talk like that, you're now a jerk and you're a bad business and you're admitting there's more money. But it is a game that you have to measure. Nobody on day one is selling tickets. That includes Lesnar, that includes McGregor, that includes Rousey, that includes Perry. And they're not even selling it on day two. But down the road, you could get a return on your investment if everything goes just perfect. But you're never going to get to that 4th and 5th and 6th fight if you've cashed the guy up. And this isn't, again, no promoter will come out publicly and back me, but I'm just sharing with you, this got tested in our sport. Conor McGregor fought with Floyd Mayweather. I believe Conor won 1 fight since then, but even getting him in there has just been a challenge. And every time somebody's asked why, they always reference the money. And I understand it. I don't begrudge it. Like, a rich man can't fight is a pretty common belief. Oscar De La Hoya proved that to be wrong. Floyd Mayweather proved that to be wrong. But I'm sharing with you, a promoter has to consider that. If I give, again, my father was a plumber, but when my father was in charge of other people, when they would do a good job and he would give them a bonus, he wanted them to know, hey, I saw you and you did a great job, and here's a reward. They'd call in sick the next day. They would go and miss 2 and 3 days. There was just something, that mentality. I don't have that mentality. I would want to get ahead. I would want to invest that money, and it makes more money. I'm overdoing this. But I'm just sharing, a promoter has to consider that. I don't have anything today or tomorrow. I got to get you back 5 and 6 and 7 times. And out of all 800 of you, 5 of you are going to find a way to make us money. That's the business. And I can't go and give it all away. I just can't.
That's a great perspective. You just don't really ever hear an answer to that question. And I knew you were the one to ask about that. That's a fantastic point.
I've got another one. Mike and I were talking about this earlier before you got on. But we were talking a little bit about, like, should the belt holder have to fight a certain amount of times a year? What about these spots where they don't fight for a long time, vacated belts, things like that, right? And, of course, John's the big one right now, right? Took 3 years off, came back, finished the guy, right? Because when he fought Gann, Gann came out at like minus 250 Vegas odds. Huge favorite when it launched, right? Gann was the guy, the best feet we've ever seen at that size, yada, yada, yada. John finishes him in 30 seconds, right? I mean, he didn't even sweat. So now John gets hurt. He's out for another year. Now, of course, the debate starts of, Aspinall should be able to fight for the title and this and this and that. But do you think these guys should be required to fight a certain amount of times a year, or you vacate the belt, right? Or if you have an injury, you get first opportunity at coming back and challenging for the belt again. Like, I feel like there needs to be some kind of consistency here, or the fans just end up getting mad and it kind of, breaks up in every direction.
I'm one of them. I'm one of those fans where, like, I don't demand a lot. I think that we're really spoiled. I grew up as a boxing fan. You got a couple of fights a year, and when those fights came along, it was just the main event. Like, we're very spoiled. I will disclose that in a minute, but man, it seems like in this space, we fiercely adhere to the rules that we make up on the spot. Like, I'll give you a great example, but it's the BMF. I would love, just this much clarity. Does that stay in a weight class? Is there a lineage? The fact that George Masvidal was the BMF champion, lost a fight to Colby Covington, but George woke up the next day as BMF champion. I'm just sharing for you. No other title's treated that way. Like, if the light heavyweight champion fights, you don't have to read the fine print, and you don't have to ask Dana at the press conference. If the light heavyweight champion fights, the light heavyweight championship is on the line. But the BMF doesn't work that way. I'm just sharing this. That's one example. But we've had guys, and again, I will use pro wrestling, but back in the day, Vince McMahon calls you a closet champion, and he would strip you if you didn't compete within 365 days. And it got tested, and the Ultimate Warrior was about to get stripped. This was the thing. But in our sport, Dominic Cruz sat for 3.5 years. It was a way different excuse. You didn't want to be cold. A poor guy had knee surgery. It could cost him his career. He was hurting financially. I don't begrudge the decision to keep the belt on him, but nobody else has gotten the grace of 3.5 years. Meanwhile, you have Prohaska saying he's got the worst shoulder that they've ever seen. 7 days into that, they pulled the belt off him while simultaneously keeping it on Francis, who had sat for 9 months at that point. I don't have a problem with any of these things. We can treat each situation different, but I don't know them now. I don't know why there's not a lineage. I don't know why George Masvidal didn't defend the belt. There's talk right now that Max Holloway's next fight will be a world title fight if he takes on Ilia Topuria. And Ilia's going, if you're going to make me put up the belt, you got one too. But it is guaranteed that Max's belt will be put up. And I don't want to use that as a one-off or that was a silly little marketing ploy. It worked. It worked. And guys like Mike and I will sacrifice our entire life. We will miss parties. We will miss social engagements. We'll miss out. Friends will quit inviting us to do things just for the dream of one day holding that damn belt. That some people are acting like, well, yeah, we bring it out or we don't bring it out. There is no we bring it out or we don't bring it out. It's the entire reason we do this.
Yeah.
If I get up the belt and picture and people recognize me as a champion, or I get a $5 million, for sure, I take the belt every time. Not even maybe. For sure, I would take being a champion.
It's fucking truth. Like, I mean, and that crosses sports too, right? Like, how many guys do you see now, like NFL, NBA, that had legendary Hall of Fame careers, and 70% of them, 10, 20 years later, say, I would have taken one ring over the Hall of Fame. I would have taken it over, the accolades, the other shit. Like, one ring would have been the difference for me.
There was a time in history, like, we all have a very rare skill set here. Like the time in your life where you're going to need to be able to do what Mike Perry can do is likely never going to come. It's likely you're not going to find yourself in a situation where you better be good with these. But there was a time where each village had to have somebody that was good at fighting. Because when a different village came, if you couldn't fight back, they would kill you. They would take your women. They would take your jewelry. They'll take your land. Like, this is the story of history. And then you get a couple of guys that are pretty good at fighting, you push back. So when that happens and fighting becomes less important, finally a promoter throws a belt out there and finds these guys like Mike and I that are willing to sacrifice their life just to tell the other guys that have just as crazy of a mentality, I had this and you didn't. And it's one of those things where when you talk about the championship and the importance of it, I do feel that some of the promoters miss that. And here we are in Olympic year. Olympic championship is the same as a world championship. Every 3 years they call it a world, and then the fourth year they call it the Olympics. But that same process and that same tournament takes place every 12 months. But the Olympic is more valuable than the world because it only comes along every 4 years. I would argue that with the BMF belt. I would argue that with the belt that Perry's got. I mean, bare knuckle is brand new. Is this still true in 50 years? I mean, let's look back and see. But there's not a lot of bare knuckle world champions walking around out there.
You're 100% right. And I don't know if you watched the David Beckham documentary on Netflix or whatever it was, but he was the top of the game, right? Famous, one of the top stars in England, and all this documentary talks about, like the one missed love of his life, right, was the World Cup. Sure. It was that World Cup final that they didn't win that he now, as much as he's accomplished, as much as he's got, which is everything, it still haunts him to today. You know what I mean? And
I
it's just, it's
respect
like
that.
you said, it's that one thing.
Yeah, I respect that. I hate when the
feel
guys,
like
something
I
bad
don't
happens.
want-
It goes, the
I don't
greatest thing
wanna
that ever
feel that
happened to
way.
me. Somebody loses. It goes, the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It's, shit, no, it's not. It's a terrible thing, and it's okay to admit it. You can feel heartache and still be a star.
You know, I still dream. I still think, you know, I keep killing it out here. And, you know, I just think of the Pride and UFC days when the guys like Rampage, Vanderlei, Chuck, Vitor, they bounce back and forth. They fight for a UFC title. They go fight for Pride. They come back to the UFC. I still think I can go back to the UFC and compete, and possibly that gold is still in reach for me someday, that type of belt. And I'm not going to sit here and hate on the fact that I didn't get it a couple years ago, or I didn't make the right type of run. I didn't put it together because I still think it's possible to go out there and get it. And when you were talking about it, I was thinking, man, I want to fight for that Chael Sonnen belt. And you know, I do got the King of Violence belt. I'm pretty proud of that. But I just want to let you know that we have a prize for you, man. And our friends over at Kanpai Pandas, we have a crypto NFT. It's
Nice!
the bad guy, the Chael Sonnen, our panda right there. That's an NFT crypto, man. That one's probably worth like 25, man. 25.
I love it. Hey, I love that. I thank you for that. I'm actually a bit of a crypto nerd, is what they call. You know, not everybody knows that language. I learned that language very early. I love crypto. I know exactly what you just gave me, and I thank you.
And this is one thing that I do love about Chael, right? Because nobody really does know this. I knew this because I've talked to Chael a little bit behind the scenes. I've talked to his partner, Rob. Your partner's fucking phenomenal, by the way.
Thank you.
Had some video calls with him. Super nice guy. And he's like, bro, we've been in crypto for like a bit. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting, because a lot of UFC fighters aren't. A lot of fighters aren't in general. Moicano is kind of bringing a little bit of like the younger, you know what I mean? Talking about the Bitcoin and things like that. But Chael's been behind the scenes in crypto for at least 5 years minimum.
I had a great thing happen to me, and it's going to be everybody's nightmare. I lost the codes to my account. Now, while I tell you that's a nightmare and it being a great thing, I would have sold it. If I had access, I would have sold it. It took me 5 years to get that back, but that was a very exciting day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, look, crypto has its ups and downs, for sure. But yeah, it's. I always like it when you run into somebody like outside of because I'm a crypto guy, right? Like, so when I find somebody outside of the space that also enjoys like shit that I love, like, it's always just a cool connection to have.
Sure. No, I love that. And by the way, Mike, just to comment on what you said about going back and forth, I could see you doing that too. You're at that right age, though. There's a tipping point where that becomes a pipe dream. I'm in that. I still close my eyes. If it's Olympic year, I was just in Paris. I still fantasize about putting a singlet on and going back to wrestling and trying out to make the Olympic. Like, that will never go away, but I do think if anybody could do it, it's you, and for two reasons. One, because Dana would give you the opportunity. He loves you. But second, I would just share that I'm not sure you've ever told the story honestly. And I believe as surprised as the public was from your Triller fight, getting the decision, to beating a bigger Luke Rockhold, I think you were surprised too. I think you turned out to be better than you thought that you were. And I think if you could go back to MMA with your new confidence, it would be a different story. I don't expect you to publicly agree with me, but I think you have been just as surprised at how good you turned out to be as the rest of us.
Thank you. I originally had said that because, you know, in my mind, you know, I'd have to say you were like a champion, and you were someone who just, I hate to say it to you, like, you know, I know that you were just right there, and it's incredible, but you've created something that's worth more than any of that.
There's been a lot of people that were right there and do not have the same name that Chael Sonnen carries.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you created something off of your talents and the way that you brought the fights. You brought it mentally, physically, spiritually. You brought it, and you came to win at all costs. Even and you taught me a lot with that. You know, just by post-fight speeches, you know, you still only talk yourself up, and that's how people have to believe in themselves. It's like, if it's just a lesson, you know, you learn something that day and you come out chin high, chest up, and you're looking like a winner all the time, man. It's, you know, and then you come on here and you're saying nice things to me, man. And now I'm like, shit, now I really can. I got to go back with this confidence that I built in these punches, and I go take that UFC belt, Dana White. Let's go, man. Let me go a top 5, however you want to start me, bro. I fight someone, I finish them, and then we fight for that title, man. The UFC gold is still in the future.
I do not.
You heard it from the bag.
I don't see why not. By the way, I do not see any reason why you can't go win that championship. I'm going to leave you with those words. Matt Lindland, I swear to goodness, my life changed one day. I told him something I was going to do. I was a junior in high school. There's a big tournament. It's called the Junior Nationals. I said, Matt, I'm going to win the Junior Nationals. And no one believed that, including me. I did not. It was just something I was saying to get this new coach. I'm trying to impress him. And I remember his response. He said, I don't see why not. And I thought about that over and over and over. And I don't see why not. But it changed me. As simple as that might sound, like for me at that moment in life, that day, I changed.
I got one question before you go.
Okay.
Are you a poker player?
I love poker. Yes, I'm a poker player. Yes.
And the reason I asked that is because, and Mike and I talked about this before you got on, about how good you are with your analysis, your articulation, etc. But the thing that I think differentiates you is you're able to read people. And because like what you said about Mike earlier, right? About you understood like he's not really a shit talker. People think he is. Right? Because public persona of a person is one thing, who that person is, completely different fucking situation, right? But you're able to read those as to where other people aren't.
I appreciate
that. I think
that.
that is also what gives you like a real analysis. People feel like it's a really good analysis on whatever topic you're talking about because you're able to read people quicker than others.
Now you give me confidence. Now the next time I play poker, I'm going to bet even more. All right, I can tell you guys are trying to get rid of me. I've been feeling this for a while.
No.
It's like, here's your hat.
Oh, no, I thought you said you had to go.
I
You've
have
been
a
trying to
burning
end this
question. I have
interview.
to get
You
it.
guys have been trying to boot me for 10 minutes. Before I go, let me just tell you a new joke. There's a new joke going around. Can I just tell you real fast before we go?
I love jokes.
All right, what is 6 feet tall, charming, and disappears in an instant? Kaboom.
Fuck.
This podcast episode was brought to you by Overdogs Bet. Sign up today for early beta access and free play at overdogsbet.com/beta.